"Mom, you cannot keep living alone in that house. It is dangerous." David's words pierced through the phone line like shards of ice. It was not his controlled professional tone, as if he were negotiating an architecture contract, that left me breathless. It was the word dangerous. It was as if my 50-year-old house in the hills of San Francisco had suddenly turned into a death trap. It was as if Evelyn Miller, a 58-year-old woman who had raised 2 children alone after being widowed, had suddenly become incapable of climbing my own stairs. David, Jessica and I have been talking, he continued without letting me finish. There is a very nice assisted living facility in Monterey Bay. It has an ocean view. You would love it. An ocean view. As if that were what mattered to me. As if it could replace the ocean I saw from my window every morning. The very same ocean I had cried in front of when their father died. The same ocean I had stared at for countless nights, wondering if I was raising my children right. I looked around my kitchen. The sunflower yellow walls I had chosen myself. The floral curtains I had hand-sewn. The coffee stain on the counter that David had made when he was 12 years old, which I could never completely scrub away. This house was not just walls and a roof. It was every sacrifice, every decision, every moment of my life since I became a widow. "I have to hang up," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "There is someone at the door." I hung up before he could answer, and it was in that moment, standing in my kitchen with the phone still warm in my trembling hand, that I knew something would have to change. I did not know what or how, but something inside me, something that had been asleep for years, had just woken up. 3 days later, I found myself at San Francisco International Airport watching my flight disappear from the departure screen. Canceled. The word blinked in red, mocking me. It was November and the autumn chill had arrived with its characteristic fog. I had planned this trip for weeks. 2 weeks with Jessica in New York. My first visit in 2 years. 2 whole years. That thought settled in my stomach like a stone. When had I allowed so much time to pass without seeing my daughter? I sat down in one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs in the terminal, feeling the weight of 58 years in my knees. The airport was buzzing with life, families reuniting, young couples holding hands, businessmen running with their briefcases. Everyone had a place to go. Everyone had someone waiting for them. I had a travel bag full of homemade hand pies that were getting cold and a phone that had not rung since I hung up on David. That was when I saw her. She was in a corner near the departure gates, almost hidden behind a column. A young girl. She could not have been older than 25 with a baby wrapped in a worn-out blanket against her chest. What caught my attention was not her clothing, which had seen better days, or the frayed bag at her feet. It was the book resting on her lap. Gray's Anatomy, the classic medical textbook with its corners folded and pages marked with colorful sticky notes. A medical student, or she had been one. I watched her for several minutes. She gently rocked the baby, singing to her in a soft voice. It was so quiet I could not hear the words, only the maternal rhythm. Other passengers walked right past her, their eyes sliding off her as if she were invisible. An older woman even changed seats when the girl adjusted the baby, acting as if poverty were contagious. Something in my chest tightened. Maybe it was the way she held that book as if it were a treasure. Maybe it was the care with which she had wrapped the baby using what was clearly her own scarf. Or maybe it was something deeper, a recognition I could not yet name. I stood up and walked toward her before I could overthink it. "Excuse me," I said softly so as not to scare her. "Are you okay? Do you need any help?" She looked up and I saw her dark eyes. They were intelligent and full of a caution that only comes from being disappointed way too many times. For a moment she thought about lying. I saw it on her face. Then something broke. "I am fine, thank you," she replied. But her voice trembled on that last word. I sat down at a respectful distance. "What is the baby's name?" "Lily." Her voice softened as she said the name. "She is 4 months old. She is beautiful." And she really was. Round cheeks and perfect heart-shaped lips, sleeping deeply despite the noise of the airport. "Were you studying medicine?" The question caught her by surprise. She looked at the book on her lap as if she had forgotten it was even there. "Yes, State University. My 3rd year." She paused. "Before." I did not need to ask what had changed. The answer was sleeping in her arms. "I am Haley," she said suddenly, as if she needed to remind herself that she still had a name beyond Mom. "Evelyn." I reached out my hand, and after a moment of hesitation, she took it. Her grip was firm despite her situation. "Haley Roberts." We sat in silence for a moment. The loudspeaker announced another flight, another destination. I should have been asking about alternative flights, calling Jessica, rescheduling. Instead, I just stayed seated. "Do you have a place to stay tonight?" I finally asked. She shook her head, and I saw how she struggled to hold back her tears. "Sometimes there is space at the St. Jude's Church shelter, if I get there early, and if there is no space—" She shrugged. It was a gesture that tried to be casual, but it just broke my heart. "Lily and I manage." Something in that moment, the way she said we manage with so much dignity despite everything, reminded me of myself 30 years ago, a recent widow with 2 small children, rejecting my family's charity because it came with heavy judgment attached, making every single penny stretch, making every meal count, managing. "I have a house," I said, and the words came out before my brain could even censor them. "In San Francisco. It is empty. I was going to be away for 2 weeks visiting my daughter in New York." Haley looked at me as if I had just spoken in another language. I cannot accept that. You do not even know me." "You are right," I admitted. "I do not know you, but I know what it is like to need help and be too proud to ask for it. I know what it is like to be alone with a baby and be terrified, and I know that my house will be better taken care of with someone inside it rather than sitting empty. But why?" Her voice cracked. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" It was a good question, a question that not even I could fully answer. There was something else going on here, something I did not understand yet. Maybe it had to do with the conversation with David. Maybe it had to do with the diagnosis I had received 3 months ago, which I still had not shared with anyone. Huntington's disease. Dr. Reynolds' words still echoed in my ears. "It is degenerative, Evelyn. Progressive. Eventually, it will affect your movement, your thinking, your ability to take care of yourself." How much time? I had asked, my voice surprisingly calm. Hard to say. It could be years. It could be months. Maybe that was what was driving me now, the knowledge that my time was limited. That if you were going to do something good, something that mattered, it had to be right now. "Because I finally said to Haley, "because sometimes we receive help when we need it, and then we pay it forward when we are able to. Consider this paying it forward before anyone even gave it to me." Haley looked at Lily, then back at me. I saw the exact moment she decided to trust me. A leap of faith from a young woman who had probably been betrayed before. "Are you sure?" Completely. That night, after helping Haley catch a bus to San Francisco with my address written carefully on a piece of paper, I called Jessica. "Mom, where are you?" My daughter's voice sounded tense. "Your flight landed 3 hours ago. I have been calling you." "My flight was canceled, sweetheart. I am sorry. I will not be able to make it this week after all." Silence. Then, "This week, Mom, I requested 2 weeks off. I rearranged my entire hospital schedule." Guilt pierced through me like a knife. "I know, honey. I'm so sorry. There were complications." What kind of complications? For a moment, I was tempted to tell her everything about the diagnosis, about Haley, about the growing feeling that my life was changing in ways I could not control. But the words got stuck in my throat. "Just flight issues. I will try to reschedule soon." Another silence. This one was much colder. "It is fine, Mom. I understand. You are busy." We all are. I have to go. I have an early surgery tomorrow. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in the cheap hotel room I had rented for the night. Through the thin wall, I could hear a couple arguing loudly. Down below, the noise of the city traffic never stopped. I sat on the hard bed and pulled out my phone again. This time I dialed the number for the waterfront diner where I knew my old friend Arthur would be closing up. Evelyn. His warm voice filled the line. What are you doing awake at this hour? Arthur, I need a favor. I told him about Haley, leaving out a few details. I knew that if I mentioned I barely knew her, he would give me a lecture about safety. Arthur had been my late husband's best friend, and after Robert died, he had become my confidant, my support, we had never really put a name to what we were. We just knew that we mattered to each other. There is a young girl who is going to stay at my house while I am away, I said. Her name is Haley Roberts. She has a baby. If she needs anything, absolutely anything, could you help her? Maybe give her some work at the diner if she is interested. Of course, Evelyn. You know I would do anything for you. He paused. Are you okay? You sound different. I am fine. Just tired. When do you get back from New York? In 2 weeks? Well, I thought so. Now I am not so sure. We said our goodbyes, and I lay down in the dark, listening to the city breathe outside my window. I had made an impulsive decision today, giving the keys to my house to a complete stranger. But as I lay there, I felt no regret. I felt something I had not felt in a very long time. I did not make it to New York for another 3 weeks. First, it was the storm, an unusual blizzard that hit the East Coast, shutting down airports and highways. Then Jessica called to tell me she had been assigned to the intensive care unit due to a staffing emergency. Better wait, Mom. I will not have time for you anyway. Every time we spoke, the gap between us seemed to widen. Our conversations became shorter, more formal. How are you? Fine. And you? I am fine too. We would hang up with promises to talk soon, which we both knew we would not keep. David was even worse. He called one more time about the assisted living facility in Monterey Bay, and when I told him I was not interested, his frustration was palpable. Mom, you are being irrational. Victoria and I have done the research. It is an excellent facility. I do not need a facility, David. I need my home. You need proper care. I am 58 years old, not 88. I can take care of myself perfectly fine. He sighed. It was the exact sigh he used to give when he was 15 years old, and I did not understand why everyone needed the latest model of sneakers. Mom, I do not want to argue about this. Just think about it, okay? But I knew what just think about it really meant. It meant he would keep pushing, that Victoria would keep researching retirement homes, that they would eventually show up with brochures, visiting hours, and that condescending smile that said, "We know what is best for you." I stayed in the city longer than planned, and with each passing day, I worried more about Haley. Had she found the house all right? Had she stayed? Or had she taken whatever she could carry and vanished? I tried calling Arthur several times, but the connection at his old diner was terrible, and I only managed to speak with him briefly. It is okay, Evelyn. The girl is fine. She has come by the diner a couple of times. She is very polite. That was all I knew. And yet, strangely, I was not worried. There was something about Haley, in the way she held that medical book, in the gentleness of her voice when she spoke to Lily. It told me that I could completely trust her. Finally, after a full month, I flew to New York. Jessica's apartment was exactly what I expected. Modern, minimalist, cold. Everything was white and gray. No photographs on the walls, no personal touches. It was like living inside a page of an interior design magazine. It is very clean, I said, leaving my suitcase in the guest room, which was clearly rarely used. Thank you. Jessica was checking her phone, still wearing her medical scrubs. I have to head back to the hospital in an hour. There are leftovers in the fridge if you are hungry. Jessica. I stopped her before she could disappear. Can we talk? Really talk, I mean. She finally looked up from her phone, and what I saw in her eyes truly scared me. She was tired. Not just physically, but in a much deeper way. There were dark circles under her eyes that makeup could not hide, and she had lost weight since the last time I had seen her. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" "I am fine, Mom, just busy." She forced a smile. "The hospital is short-staffed. We are all pulling double shifts. And Matthew—" I was referring to the doctor she had mentioned in a few phone calls, the one I thought might become something serious. Her face closed off. "It did not work out." "Oh, honey, I am sorry. I do not want to talk about it." Her voice was sharp, then it softened. "I am sorry. It is just that it has been a rough month. We can talk tomorrow when I am not so exhausted." I nodded, even though we both knew that tomorrow would be exactly the same. She would be at the hospital or sleeping or studying for some board exam. I would be completely alone in this sterile apartment, wondering when I had lost my daughter. That night, unable to sleep on the overly soft bed in the guest room, I sat by the window. I watched New York City shining brightly below. The city was beautiful, vibrant, alive. And I felt more alone than ever before. I thought about David, so busy with his architecture career and his socialite wife that he could not find the time for his own mother. I thought about Jessica, working herself to absolute exhaustion in a job that was clearly consuming her alive. And I thought about myself, sitting in a foreign apartment in a foreign city, invisible even to my own children. When had this happened? When had we become strangers? I remembered when they were little. David, with his Legos scattered all over the living room floor building impossible skyscrapers. Jessica with her toy doctor kit curing all of her stuffed animals. We used to have family Sundays where we would cook together, play games together, and laugh together. Where had that family gone? My phone vibrated with a text message from Arthur. The girl asked if you could call her whenever you have the time. She says it is not urgent, but she wants to thank you personally. I looked at the number he had attached. It was the diner's phone since Haley did not have a cell phone of her own. For a moment, I considered calling right away. Then I checked the time. It was nearly midnight back in California. I decided to wait until the morning. But I did not sleep at all that night. I stayed by the window watching the city lights, and for the first time in months, I cried. I cried for the marriage I had lost way too soon. I cried for the children who had drifted far away. I cried over the diagnosis I still could not face, and I cried for the woman I used to be, strong, determined, full of purpose, a woman who somewhere along the way had completely lost herself. When the sun finally began to rise over New York, I made a firm decision. I would not stay for 2 weeks. I would not even stay for a full week. Jessica clearly did not have any time for me, and I needed to go home, my real home, not this freezing apartment. I needed to see what had happened with Haley. I needed to regain some control over my own life. But first, I needed to understand exactly what had gone wrong with my kids. And to do that, I would have to do something I had been avoiding for 3 entire years. I would have to be honest, completely, brutally honest. The storm hit New York 2 days after I arrived. It was not like the gentle winter rains of San Francisco. This was something fierce, violent. The wind shook the windows of Jessica's apartment. The rain fell so heavily that the world outside the glass disappeared completely into a gray curtain. Jessica had left early that morning for an emergency surgery. She had left me a sticky note on the kitchen counter. "Mom, it might be a really long shift. There is food in the fridge. Make yourself at home." Make yourself at home. The words mocked me as I wandered through the empty apartment. This was not my home. My home had vibrant colors, yellow and red walls, floral curtains I had hand-sewn myself, photographs covering every single available surface. My home smelled like fresh-baked pies and freshly brewed coffee. My home had life. This was just a beautiful empty box. I tried calling Haley through Arthur's diner, but the phone lines were down because of the storm. I tried calling David, but it went straight to his voicemail. I tried reading, watching television, cooking, anything to feel useful, but absolutely nothing worked. On the third day of the storm, with Jessica barely coming home to sleep for 4 hours before rushing back to the hospital, something inside me finally broke. I packed my suitcase. Jessica got home at 7 in the evening, soaking wet and clearly exhausted. She found me sitting in the living room with my heavy coat on my suitcase resting right by the front door. "Mom, what are you doing?" "I am going home, Jessica." "But the storm. All the flights are canceled." "Then I will take a bus or a train, or I will walk if I have to." My voice sounded much harsher than I intended, but I simply could not soften it. "I cannot stay here any longer." "What? Why did I do something wrong?" She looked genuinely confused, and somehow that only made things worse. "No, honey, you did not do anything wrong, and that is exactly the problem." She dropped her hospital bag onto the couch. "I do not understand." "I know you do not." I sat down suddenly, feeling weak in the knees. "Jessica, when was the last time we had a real conversation? Not about my health or your work schedule or the weather. When was the last time you asked me how I was genuinely feeling? When was the last time you told me something personal about your own life?" "Mom, I have been really busy." "Everybody is busy," I interrupted. "You are busy. David is busy. I understand that. But Jessica, you moved here 2 years ago, and in all that time I have seen you maybe 5 times total, 5 times in 2 years, and every single one of those times felt like visiting a polite stranger, not my own daughter." Tears began to well up in her eyes. "That is not fair, Mom. I am building my career. You used to tell me that education was the most important thing, that I had to work hard. And you do. You work so hard that you are burning yourself out. Look at yourself, Jessica. You are exhausted. You have lost weight. You broke up with Matthew." "I do not want to talk about Matthew." "And you are clearly unhappy. And whenever I try to talk about this, whenever I try to be here for you, you just keep me at arm's length." My voice cracked. "Is it because you do not need my help, or is it because you do not know how to let me in anymore?" Jessica sank into the couch, burying her face in her hands. For a moment, I thought she was going to cry, but when she lowered her hands, her face was completely dry, even though her eyes were red. "Do you know what the real problem is, Mom?" Her voice was quiet, heavily controlled. "You have spent my entire life telling me to work hard, to be successful, to seize the opportunities that you never had. So I did. I did everything you asked of me. I became a doctor. I got a great job. I work extremely long hours to be the absolute best at what I do. I know that, and I am incredibly proud of you. But it is never enough, is it? Because now the problem is that I work too much. Now the problem is that I do not spend enough time with you. But Mom, if I do spend time with you, the only thing you ever talk about is how much you sacrificed so I could get here, how hard you worked, how many sleepless nights you had, how much money you did not spend on yourself so that I could afford textbooks and tuition." Her words hit me like physical slaps across the face. I only wanted you to know that I love you." "I know, Mom, but sometimes it feels like your love comes with an invoice attached, as if every single one of my successes is really just your validation. Do you remember when I graduated from medical school? The very first thing you said, I searched my memory, but I could not recall that specific moment. You said all the sacrifice was worth it. Not I am proud of you. Not you did it. You said that your sacrifice was worth it, as if everything I had accomplished was just to justify what you had given up." The tears finally came streaming silently down her cheeks. "And so every single time I see you, I feel like I have to prove that I am still worth it, that I am still successful enough, dedicated enough, grateful enough." I was completely speechless. Every fiber of my being wanted to deny what she was saying, to defend my actions, to explain my intentions. But deep down in that hidden place where we keep the ugly truths we are terrified to face, I knew she was right. I I had no idea you felt that way. I know. That is the saddest part. It was not malicious, Mom. I know that you love me. I know you did the absolute best you could, but the damage is still the same." She wiped her cheeks. "And when Dad died—" Her voice broke on the word Dad, and something tight and painful seized in my chest. "When Dad died, you told us that we had to be strong, that we had to keep moving forward, that you needed us to be strong." She looked me directly in the eyes. "Mom, I was 11 years old. David was 14. We were little kids who had just lost our father, and instead of letting us cry, you turned us into your emotional support system." Tears began pouring down my own face now. I was so scared. I did not know how we were going to survive. I know, and I understand it now as an adult. But as a little girl, I learned that my feelings were a burden, that I had to be tough for you, that I could not add to your problems with my own. She stood up and walked over to the window, watching the storm raging outside. "So I got really good at burying things, really good at being tough. And now, even when I want to get closer to you, I do not know how." Silence filled the apartment, broken only by the sound of the heavy rain against the glass. "Jessica." I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper, "I am sorry. I am so incredibly sorry." She turned back to me, looking surprised. "What?" "I am sorry. You are right about everything. I was so obsessively focused on surviving, on making sure you had everything you needed materially, that I completely missed what you actually needed." I wiped my tears away. "You needed a mother who would let you be weak, who would let you cry, who would hold you when you were terrified instead of asking you to hold her up." Jessica walked slowly back toward me and sat on the edge of the couch. "I do not blame you, Mom. You did the best you could in an impossible situation. But my best was not enough. And now I have lost you, you and David both." "You have not lost us." Her voice was gentle now. "We are right here. But Mom, if we are going to rebuild this, we have to be honest, both of us. No more pretending that everything is fine when it is not. No more burying things just because we are afraid of hurting each other." I nodded. I knew she was right. And I knew that if we were going to be completely honest, there was something I had to tell her, something I had been hiding for 3 entire months. "There is something I need to tell you." I started. "Something about my health." But before I could continue, her cell phone rang, a shrill, piercing sound that shattered the moment. She glanced at the screen, and I saw the deep conflict wash over her face. "It is the hospital. A mass casualty emergency, a multi-vehicle pileup because of the storm. They are calling everybody in." "Go," I told her, even though my heart sank. "People need you. Mom, I really—" "Go, we can talk when you get back." She hesitated, then nodded. She grabbed her hospital bag, then paused right at the front door. "I love you, Mom, and we are going to figure this out, I promise you." "I love you too, sweetheart." And then she was gone, leaving me all alone in the apartment with my half-packed suitcase and all those unspoken words just hanging heavily in the air. I checked my phone. There was a text message from Arthur sent hours ago when the phone lines had finally come back up. "Haley is fine. The house is fine, but she says she needs to talk to you whenever you get a chance. She says she found something." She found something. A cold shiver of pure apprehension ran down my spine. What on earth could she have found? And suddenly, with absolute terrifying clarity, I knew I had to go back home. Not in a few days. Not in a week. Right now. I needed to face whatever it was that Haley had uncovered. I needed to have that difficult conversation with David. And I finally needed to decide exactly how I was going to live out the time I had left, because Jessica was right about one thing. No more burying secrets. No more pretending. It was time for the truth. All of it. No matter how much it hurt. The journey back to San Francisco was an exhausting blur of delayed buses, missed connections, and a growing anxiety that settled deep in my stomach like a heavy stone. Jessica had tried to convince me to wait until the winter storm passed. But something deep inside me knew that I could not wait another minute. It had been 5 months, 5 full months since I had handed the keys to my house over to a complete stranger. What was I even thinking? But even as I asked myself that question, I already knew the answer. I was thinking about doing something good before it was too late. I was thinking that maybe, just maybe helping somebody else would help me find a sense of purpose when my own life felt like it was crumbling into pieces. The taxi drove up the steep, winding streets of San Francisco. We passed by those classic Victorian houses, painted in every color of the rainbow: cobalt blue, sunflower yellow, crimson red, emerald green. This city never slept in black and white. It lived in defiant, vibrant technicolor, right against the gray waters of the Pacific Ocean. My house was located on Telegraph Hill, one of the steepest slopes in the city. I had always loved the view, the ocean stretching all the way to the horizon, the cargo ships in the bay looking like tiny toys from this height, the city unfolding below us like a multicolored patchwork quilt. But when the taxi turned onto my street, I lost my breath entirely. The house I had left 5 months ago with its peeling paint and severely neglected garden had been completely transformed. The exterior walls were gleaming with a fresh coat of paint. It was the exact same cheerful yellow I had chosen decades ago, but brighter now, more alive. The green window shutters I had been planning to replace for years had been carefully restored and repainted, and the front yard. The garden that I had allowed to slowly wither away after Robert died was now flourishing. Pink and red bougainvillea vines bloomed everywhere, their vibrant flowers cascading over the low fence like a joyous celebration. "Is this the correct address, ma'am?" the taxi driver asked, looking at me through his rearview mirror. "Yes," I whispered, even though I could barely recognize my own home. "Yes, this is it." I paid the fare and stepped out of the car. My legs were trembling slightly as I walked up the 3 wooden steps to my front door. The door itself had been sanded down and freshly varnished. The natural wood was glowing beautifully in the late afternoon sun. Someone had hung up a brand new wreath, dried flowers carefully woven together with colorful ribbons. It was exactly the kind of craft I used to make when the kids were little. I inserted my house key with shaking hands. The lock turned incredibly smoothly. It had been oiled, too, and the heavy door swung open without that familiar, annoying creak I had just accepted as inevitable. And then I saw the inside. If the exterior of the house had left me breathless, the interior completely stole my voice away. Everything was clean. Not just tidy, but absolutely immaculate. The hardwood floors that I had covered up with rugs to hide the scuff marks were now shining brightly. They had clearly been sanded and refinished. The living room windows, which I always kept half closed because it was simply too much effort to wash them, were now letting in rivers of bright golden sunlight. But it was not just the cleanliness. It was the way everything had been reorganized with such thoughtful care. The family photographs I had packed away in cardboard boxes because it hurt too much to look at them were now beautifully framed. They were hung with love all along the hallway walls, not randomly but carefully curated. A gallery of my entire life. There was Robert and me on our wedding day, young and desperately in love. The kids when they were babies, their toothless little smiles captured forever on film. David at his high school graduation, standing tall and proud, Jessica in her scrubs during her very first year of medical school. And in a special corner right by the window with the best natural light, there were photographs I had not laid eyes on in decades. Pictures of myself from when I was young. Me at 20 years old dancing at the Monterey Jazz Festival. Me with Robert long before the kids were ever born laughing together on the sandy beach. Me heavily pregnant with David, radiant and completely full of hope. Miss Evelyn, I spun around so quickly that I almost lost my footing. Haley was standing right in the doorway to the kitchen. Lily, looking so much bigger now, was resting comfortably on her hip. The painfully thin, terrified girl I had met at the airport had completely transformed. She had gained a healthy amount of weight. Her skin was glowing, and her eyes. Her eyes no longer held that harsh, defensive caution. Haley. I gasped, and before I could even think about it, I crossed the room and pulled her into a tight hug. I hugged her and Lily so fiercely that the baby protested with a loud squeal. "I am sorry, I am so sorry," I said, laughing and crying at the exact same time. "I just was not expecting this. What on earth did you do to my house?" Haley gently pulled away, biting her lower lip nervously. "I really hope you are not upset with me. I know you only said I could stay here, but I wanted to show you that I did not take advantage of your incredible trust. I wanted to make sure that when you came back, you would see that your generosity was not wasted on me." Upset. I looked around the living room once again, noticing even more tiny details. The curtains I had sewn years ago were now thoroughly washed and carefully ironed. The living room sofa that I used to cover with an old bedsheet was now fully exposed, clearly having been professionally deep cleaned. Even the potted plants I had neglected had been brought back to life or completely replaced with new ones. "Haley, this is just beautiful. More beautiful than I have kept it in years." "I found a job," she said quickly, acting as if she desperately needed to explain herself. "At the waterfront diner. Mr. Arthur was incredibly kind to me. He even lets me bring Lily to work with me. It does not pay a fortune, but it is enough. I saved every single extra penny to buy the supplies. I did most of the hard labor myself. The deep cleaning, the painting, the sanding. Mr. Arthur helped me out with the heavy lifting." Of course he did. Arthur had always been exactly like that. Immensely generous without ever making you feel like you owed him a single dime. But wait. Haley gently guided me toward the kitchen. There is something else. Something I found. That is why I asked Mr. Arthur to tell you to call me. The kitchen had been totally transformed too. The wooden cabinets I had planned to replace for years had been sanded down and repainted a gorgeous creamy white. The backsplash tiles behind the stove, original to when Robert and I first bought the place, were sparkling clean for the first time in decades. But Haley was not pointing out any of the home improvements. She was pointing at the wall right next to the refrigerator where I had hung one of my absolute favorite paintings, a beautiful watercolor of the harbor that Robert had bought for me on our very first wedding anniversary. When I was fixing up the drywall over here, there was a bad water leak that had ruined the plaster, and I found this. She carefully lifted the painting off its hook, revealing a small hidden hole in the wall right behind it. And tucked inside that hole was a metal tin, an old cookie tin that I recognized immediately. My heart instantly started beating faster. I did not open it," Haley said very quickly. "It is not my place, but it was hidden in there and I figured you needed to know about it." With shaking hands, I took the metal tin from her. It was heavy, filled to the brim with something. For a very long moment, I simply held it, knowing exactly what was hidden inside, knowing full well that once I opened that lid, there would be no turning back. "Miss Evelyn, are you okay? You look incredibly pale." "I am completely fine," I lied. "I just need to sit down." Haley guided me to a wooden chair at the kitchen table, the exact same table where Robert and I had shared thousands of meals, where I had helped the kids with their math homework, where I had cried all alone on so many dark nights after he passed away. With fingers that barely obeyed me, I pried open the metal lid. Letters, dozens of them tied tightly together with a red ribbon that had faded to a pale pink over the years. And underneath the stack of letters, there were old photographs, secret photographs that no one else had ever seen. "They are love letters," Haley said softly, having obviously seen enough of the envelopes to piece it together. From someone named A. I picked up the very first letter, the only one that was not tied up in the main bundle. It was the last one I had ever received, the one I had read 1,000 times over before finally hiding it away. My love, I know I asked you not to wait for me. I know I told you to move on, to find happiness without me, but I cannot stop thinking about you, about the baby who carries my legacy, even though another man will be the one signing his birth certificate. I am coming back, Evelyn. I do not know exactly when, but I am coming back. And when I do, if you still want me, if there is still a chance for us, I will be waiting for you at the waterfront diner, the exact same place where we first met. I will wait there every single day at sunset, just in case it is you walking through that front door. Yours always, Arthur. Arthur? I whispered his name out loud, and Haley slowly nodded. Mr. Arthur, from the diner. It was not a question. Yes. I placed the letter carefully back into the metal tin. Mr. Arthur he is David's real father. The heavy words hung in the kitchen air, a shocking confession and a lifelong secret all at once. I told Haley the entire complicated story while Lily played happily at our feet with the pots and pans I had handed her. I told her about meeting Arthur when I was 23 years old. He was a commercial fisherman back then, young, incredibly strong, and completely full of wild dreams. We fell deeply in love with all the reckless intensity of youth, never once thinking about the harsh consequences. And then I got pregnant. My family was strictly Catholic, I explained. Very, very traditional. When I told my father, he said I had brought terrible shame to our family. He told me I had to get married immediately, or he would throw me out on the street. And Arthur's family was very wealthy. They owned an entire fleet of fishing boats. They were not just the workers. When his father found out about us, he gave him a brutal ultimatum: marry the society girl they had handpicked for him, someone from his own social class, or be completely disinherited and kicked out of the family forever. Haley grimaced. And he chose the money. No. The word came out much louder than I had intended. He chose me. He went straight to his father and told him he did not care about the trust fund. He said he loved me and that he would take care of me and the baby no matter what it took. So what happened then? My own father happened first. The old emotional wounds still physically hurt even after all these years. Before Arthur could even tell his family, my father found a suitor for me. Robert Miller, a genuinely good man, a kind man, not rich, but very stable. He was a fisherman too, just like Arthur, but without all the wealthy family complications. And you accepted him. I was 23 years old, pregnant, and absolutely terrified. My father said that if I did not marry Robert, he would kick me out without a single dollar to my name. And I thought about my baby, about David. What kind of life would he have if I were a single mother with zero family support? No money, absolutely nothing. Tears started streaming down my cheeks again. So I accepted the proposal, and I wrote Arthur a letter. I told him that I had gotten married, that he needed to move on with his life, that he needed to forget about us completely. I wiped my stinging eyes. I married Robert 3 days later. David was born 7 months later. Everyone in town knew the truth, but nobody said a single word. That is just how things were back then. Did Robert know that David was not his biological son? Yes, I told him the absolute truth before we tied the knot. He said he did not care. He promised he would love David as if he were his very own, and he did for the most part. But there was always something there, a tiny distance. A slight difference in how he treated David versus how he treated Jessica when she was born 2 years later. And Arthur just left. His family sent him away overseas, to Europe, I think. I did not hear from him for years. I picked up another one of the old letters, but he kept writing to me. For years, he wrote me these letters that I never once answered, because I was a married woman, because I had made my choice, because I thought I was doing the right thing. When did he finally come back? When David was 10 years old. His wife, the woman his parents had forced him to marry, she was killed in a tragic car accident. They never had any children together. He moved back to San Francisco and came looking for me. I remembered that exact day with a painful crystal clarity. Arthur standing right on my front porch, older but still incredibly handsome, his eyes completely full of everything he had left unsaid. But I was married. I had 2 little kids. And Robert. Robert was a truly decent man. He did not deserve for me to betray him. So you rejected him. I told him that we could be friends, strictly friends. He opened up the diner, the waterfront diner, and we saw each other occasionally, innocent cups of coffee, casual conversations about the kids, about life. We never crossed that line. Until never. My word was firm. We never, ever crossed that line. Even after Robert died 15 years ago, we just could not do it. There was way too much history, too much pain, and David, oh God, David, does he know the truth? Robert told him right before he passed away. The painful words came out feeling like broken glass. He was in the hospital dying of cancer, and he called David over to his bedside. He told him the truth. He told him that he had loved him like a real son despite everything. But he said David deserved to know the truth about who his biological father really was. How long ago was that? 3 years ago, David was 31, and from that day forward, from that exact day, everything shattered between us. Haley reached across the kitchen table and gently took my hand. That is why he is so distant. It is not just about the sacrifices you mentioned earlier. It is because he feels like his entire life was a lie. Yes. The word tore out of me like a sob, and he is absolutely right. I lied to his face for 31 years. I let him grow up believing that Robert was his dad. I let Robert treat Jessica differently without ever stepping in to stop it. I let all that pain and deep confusion pile up all because I was simply too terrified to face the ugly truth. We sat in total silence for a moment, the crushing weight of 35 years of secrets filling the kitchen. Lily had fallen fast asleep on the floor, completely surrounded by her shiny pots and pans. "What are you going to do now?" Haley finally asked. I looked at the old letters scattered across the table, solid evidence of a love that had survived for decades despite everything thrown at it. I looked around my beautiful kitchen, totally transformed by the kindness of a stranger, and I thought about Jessica back in New York, completely exhausted and alone. I thought about David over in Los Angeles with Victoria, building a life that looked absolutely picture perfect from the outside, but was probably just as full of dark secrets as my own. "I am going to call them," I said, "both of them, and I am going to tell them the truth, all of it, about Arthur, about everything, about Arthur, about the secret letters, and about my illness." I froze, suddenly realizing exactly what I had just revealed. Haley's eyes widened in shock. Illness. And then, because I simply could not hold in any more secrets, I told her about the terrifying diagnosis, about Huntington's disease, about the progressive degeneration of my brain, about the horrifying fact that David and Jessica both had a 50% chance of having inherited it. "Oh my God," Haley whispered. "Do they know?" "No, nobody knows. Except, well, now you do." "Why did you not tell them?" "Because I was terrified." The painful words spilled out of me in a rushing torrent. Terrified that they would only come back into my life out of pity and guilt. Terrified that they would look at me and only see a massive burden. Terrified that everything we have already lost, the closeness, the love, the family we used to be, that it would all vanish forever if they found out I am dying. But Miss Evelyn, they deserve to know, especially if it is genetic. I know, I always knew. It was time to stop being so afraid, time to stop burying secrets, time to face absolutely everything, the past, the present, and the very limited future I had left. "Will you help me?" I asked Haley. "When they get here, I want you to stay, not as a maid or a helper, but as family. Because that is what you are to me now. Do you realize that in these past 5 months, you have become my family just as much as they are?" Tears streamed steadily down Haley's face. "Of course I will stay, for as long as you ever need me." I called David first. He answered the phone after the third ring. His voice was completely professional and slightly annoyed. "Mom, I am right in the middle of a big presentation." "David." My voice was much stronger than usual, carrying a sharp edge I had not used with him in years. "I need you to come to San Francisco. This very weekend. It is completely non-negotiable." Silence. Then, what happened? "Are you okay? Come here and you will find out. Saturday at noon. And David, come alone. Without Victoria." "Mom, please." The words came out much softer now. "Just this once. Just do this one thing for me without questioning it." Another long silence, then a heavy sigh. "All right, I will be there." Oh, Jessica was much more difficult. When I called her, her voice sounded incredibly groggy and sleepy. She had probably been sleeping off another exhausting double shift. "Mom, what time is it?" "It is late. I am sorry, but Jessica, I need you to come home. To San Francisco. This weekend." "This weekend?" I could literally hear her waking up, becoming much more alert. "Mom, I have shifts scheduled at the hospital." "Cancel them. Tell the hospital administration that it is a family emergency." "It is a family emergency." Her voice pitched up, heavily tinged with panic. "What happened? Are you sick? Are you hurt?" "I am physically okay right now, but there are things we desperately need to talk about. Things I simply cannot say over the phone. And Jessica, your brother, is coming too. I need both of you here in the same room." I heard her breathing change over the line, the panic slowly transforming into deep realization. "This is about what we started to talk about in my apartment, about your health." "Yes, among a few other things. I will be on the very first flight I can get." Saturday arrived way too fast, and yet not nearly fast enough. Haley had completely insisted on helping me prep the house. Not that the house needed much more cleaning after all of her hard work, but we just needed to do something with our hands to calm our racing nerves. We baked hand pies together, dozens and dozens of them. She taught me a brand new crimping technique she had learned from one of the line cooks at the diner, and I showed her how my grandmother used to add a little pinch of brown sugar to the savory meat filling. A sweet little touch that always surprised people. "Are you nervous?" she asked as we folded the pastry dough. "Absolutely terrified," I admitted to her. "It has been 3 entire years since David and I talked about anything real, and Jessica, after our intense conversation in New York, I just do not know what to expect anymore." "Expect honesty," Haley said very simply. "You are offering them the brutal truth. They will return the exact same thing." Mr. Arthur had come over early that morning, long before the kids were supposed to arrive. He stood right in the middle of my living room. The living room he had helped paint and restore, never knowing he was helping to restore his own buried secret. He looked at me with those deep eyes I knew so incredibly well. "Are you really going to tell them?" he asked. "Everything. Evelyn, you really do not have to do this." "Yes, I do." I walked right up to him. This beautifully complicated thing between us still wildly pulsing after all these long years. "Arthur, I have spent 35 years keeping heavy secrets, lies of omission, half-truths, things left unsaid, and it has cost me absolutely everything. My relationship with David, my honesty with Jessica, even my relationship with you. With me. You should have been a real part of David's life. You should have been his actual father, not just the friendly diner owner who gave him free candy when he was a little boy. You did what you thought was the right thing to do. No, I did what was easy. I did the thing that let me avoid incredibly hard conversations and even harder decisions. I gently took his hand. It was the very first time I had touched him with real intention in 15 years. But not anymore. Today they are going to know everything. And after that, we can finally decide what comes next. You, me, them. All of us together. He squeezed my hand tightly. Do you want me to stay here when they arrive? No, not quite yet. Let me talk to them first. Then, I took a deep, steadying breath. Then I will call you. And if David wants to see you, if he wants to officially meet his real father, you will come over. Evelyn, I have been waiting 35 years for that phone call. I would come over even if I had to swim across the entire ocean to get here. He left the house right as David's taxi was pulling up the steep hill. David stepped out of the taxi with the exact same rigid posture he'd perfectly honed ever since he became a highly successful architect. An expensive tailored suit, a genuine leather briefcase, highly polished shoes, every single inch of him screaming the successful Los Angeles professional. But the moment he actually looked at the house, he stopped dead in his tracks. Mom, what on earth did you do to the house? I was standing right in the open doorway. Haley was standing slightly behind me, holding Lily safely in her arms. It was not me, I said. It was Haley. That was when he finally noticed her. The young girl holding a baby standing right inside his mother's house, acting as if she completely belonged there. Who is Haley? His voice carried that dangerous edge he always used when he was desperately trying to control his temper. A friend of mine. She and her baby have been staying here while I was away on my trip. Staying here. He marched up the front steps, his handsome face hardening into stone. Mom, you let a complete stranger live inside your house. I am Haley Roberts, Haley said incredibly calmly. She set Lily down onto the floor right where a pile of toys was waiting for her. And yes, your mother was kind enough to let me stay here when I had absolutely nowhere else to go. That is it. David whipped his head back toward me, total disbelief and burning anger mixing violently on his face. Mom, you have completely lost your mind. You just let random people live inside your home. What if she robs you blind? What if she is scamming you? She is not scamming me, David. How do you know that? Because she tells you so. Mom, that is exactly how con artists work. They prey on vulnerable elderly people. I am not vulnerable, I interrupted him. My voice was significantly colder than I had intended it to be. And I am certainly not senile. Haley has taken better care of this house than I have in years. Look around, David. Do you see anything missing? Or do you see a home that has been deeply loved and cared for? He finally looked around the living room, noticing the real improvements for the very first time. The beautifully framed photographs, the gleaming hardwood floors, the spotless glass windows. Something in his rigid face softened, but only just a tiny bit. It is still incredibly irresponsible. Mom, you have to be way more careful, especially at my age, I repeated flatly. David, I am 58 years old, not 88. Even so. He suddenly stopped talking, his eyes focusing sharply on something right past my shoulder. In the corner of the living room, Haley had set up a small study space. A desk covered with heavy medical textbooks all carefully stacked. Handwritten notes, open notebooks. Is she studying medicine? He asked, his tone dripping with heavy accusation. Haley said firmly before I could even open my mouth. State University, my 3rd year. I had to drop out when I got pregnant. How incredibly convenient. And now you are living absolutely rent-free in my mother's house, probably plotting exactly how to squeeze her for even more. David. My sharp voice cut through the air like a cracking whip. That is quite enough. Haley is my invited guest, and more than that, she is my very good friend. You will treat her with respect under this roof, or you can turn around and leave right now. He stared at me completely stunned. I had not spoken to him like that in Well, in years, maybe never. Mom, I am just trying to protect you. You do not need to protect me. I need you to actually trust me. Trust that after 58 years on this planet, I can still make my own damn decisions. The sound of another taxi pulling up saved David from having to come up with a response. Jessica had arrived. My daughter stepped out of the car. She looked just as exhausted as the last time I had seen her in New York, but there was something distinctly different in her eyes today, a quiet determination that had not been there before. Mom. She hugged me incredibly tightly. Then she pulled back just to look at my face. Are you okay? On the phone you sounded... I am perfectly fine, sweetheart. Come on inside. Your brother is already here. Jessica walked through the front door, and she stopped dead in her tracks, exactly like David had done, just to stare around the totally transformed house. Oh my God, Mom, this is absolutely beautiful. All thanks to Haley, I said, and I introduced her to the young girl. Jessica, being exactly who Jessica is, walked straight over to Lily and knelt down on the floor to say hello to the baby. Welcome to our story family. Hello, gorgeous. What is your name? Lily. Ashley said, visibly relieved by Sarah's warmth. She is 9 months old. She is beautiful. Sarah looked up her medical eye, noticing the medical books. Are you a medical student? I was, the state medical school, I added. 3rd year, before she had to drop out. Something passed over Sarah's face. Understanding empathy. That must have been hard. It was. But your mother, she saved me and Lily. David made a sound of disgust, and Sarah finally seemed to notice the tension in the room. What did I miss? Your brother thinks Ashley is scamming me, I said frankly. I didn't say. You said it was irresponsible to let her stay here, that she was taking advantage of me. Practically everything but calling her a scammer to her face. Sarah looked at David, then at me, then at Ashley. She painted the house. Yes, Ashley said quietly, and she cleaned and organized everything. Yes, and she has been taking care of the house for... How long? 5 months, I said. 5 months. Sarah turned to David. And in those 5 months, how many times did you come to visit Mom? David flushed. That is not fair. I have been busy. How many times, David? None, he admitted through gritted teeth. Exactly. So maybe. Sarah walked over to Ashley and extended her hand. We should be grateful that someone has been here taking care of Mom and her house while we were too busy. Ashley took her hand, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Sarah, David started. No. I interrupted him. Everyone sit down. Ashley, could you take Lily to your room for a while? I need to speak with my children alone. Ashley nodded and picked up Lily, but before leaving, she turned to me. Are you sure I can stay if you need me? I am sure, but thank you, honey. When she left, I turned to David and Sarah, both now sitting on the couch with cautious expressions. There are things I need to tell you, I began. Things I should have said years ago, and they are going to hurt. They are going to make you angry. They are going to change how you see everything. But I need you to listen until the end before judging. Can you do that? They exchanged looks, then nodded. I sat across from them and took a deep breath. David, I know you know that Robert was not your biological father. His body stiffened immediately. How... Your father told me before he died that he had planned to tell you. I looked directly at my children, both now adults, both looking at me with a mixture of caution and curiosity. But what you do not know is the full story. And Sarah, you need to hear this too, because it involves our family in ways you never understood. I stood up and went to the kitchen, returning with the metal box. I placed it on the coffee table in front of them. What is that? Sarah asked. The truth, I said simply. All of it. 35 years of truth that I have been hiding. And then, with trembling hands and a broken voice, I told them everything. I showed them the letters one by one. I read them passages of Arthur's passionate writing words of love that I had kept in secret for decades. I showed them the hidden photographs, Arthur and I young and in love before families and traditions and fear separated us. David said nothing. He just sat there, his face growing paler with each revelation. Sarah was the one who spoke first. "Why, Mom? Why did you never tell us?" "Because I was ashamed," I admitted. Because in that time, in that culture, what I did, getting pregnant out of wedlock, was unforgivable. And because when I married Robert, he asked me to never speak of Arthur. He said David would be his son in every way that mattered, but only if I promised to close that door forever. And you did it. David's voice was barely audible. "You closed the door." I tried. God knows I tried. I looked at the box of letters. "But Arthur came back when you were 10 years old, David. He opened the cafe by the harbor. We became friends. Just friends. Robert knew. They even became friends too, in a way. 3 people dancing around a truth that we all knew, but no one named. Dad knew." David finally looked at me. "Dad knew the man from the cafe was my real father, and he never said anything during all those years. He just pretended. He did not pretend to love you, David. That love was real. But yes, we lived with that secret. We all did." David stood up abruptly, walking toward the window. I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands clenched into fists. "My whole life has been a lie. Not all of it. Yes, all of it." He turned around and I saw tears in his eyes for the first time since he was a little boy. I grew up thinking Robert was my father. I grew up wondering why he treated me differently than Sarah, because when she got an award, he was beaming. But when I got one, he just nodded and said, "Good job." The words hit me like punches. "David, your father loved you." My father. Which father? Mom. The one who raised me, but never saw me as truly his, or the stranger who serves coffee, and who never had the chance to be my father because you decided a convenient marriage was more important. I was 23 years old. My voice broke. I was a terrified girl who was pregnant in a family that would have thrown me out on the street. I was not choosing a convenient marriage. I was choosing to survive. "And what about later? You were free. Why didn't you tell us then?" "Because Robert made me promise him on his deathbed that I would wait, that I would let you process his death before adding this on top. And then a year passed, and then 2, and then it became easier to say nothing than to face this conversation." "Easier for you," David said bitterly. "Yes." The word came out like a whisper. "Easier for me, and I am sorry. I am so sorry, David." Sarah had been quiet during this exchange, but now she stood up and walked toward David. "Wait," she said. "Just wait 1 second." She turned back to me. "Mom, you said Dad told David the truth before he died. When exactly? 3 years ago, the day before he died. And he told him about Arthur, that he was David's biological father." "Yes." Sarah looked at David. "So you have known for 3 years. 3 years, and you never told me." David flushed. "It was not your business." "Not my business. You are my brother. This affects our entire family, our history, and you decided to keep it to yourself." "I did not know how to tell you." "Oh, so it is okay when you keep secrets, but when Mom does it, it is an unforgivable betrayal. Is that how it works?" Sarah's voice was sharp with sarcasm. "That is different." How is it different, David?" Sarah walked toward him. "Mom was 23 pregnant and scared. You were 31 and just, what, ashamed, angry? So consumed by your own feelings that you could not share something so important with your sister. Sarah. And that is why you have been distant these past 3 years, why you barely come to visit, why you always have excuses. I thought it was because I had done something wrong, because somehow I had failed you. It is not your fault, David said quickly. Then whose fault is it Mom's for making a hard choice when she was basically a child? For protecting her secret like her dying husband asked her to? Sarah turned to me. Mom, I have been angry at you for years. Angry because I thought you made us feel guilty for your sacrifices. Angry because I felt like I could never do enough to make up for everything you had given. I know, I said softly, and you were right to be. I did that. Not intentionally, but I did. But now I understand something else. Her voice softened. You were carrying all these secrets. The truth about David, your relationship with Arthur, the entire weight of having made a decision that changed the course of your whole life. And you could never talk about it. You could never share that burden. Tears began to stream down my cheeks. I did not want you to judge me. I am not judging you, Mom. I just wish you had trusted us. Me too. I wiped my eyes. But there is more. There is something else you need to know. David turned back from the window. What else could there be? I took a deep, shaky breath. It was now or never. 8 months ago, I went to the doctor. I had been having tremors, memory problems, mood swings that I could not explain. My voice remained surprisingly steady. After several tests, Dr. Reynolds diagnosed me with Huntington's disease. The silence that followed was absolute. When Sarah spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Huntington's disease. It is progressive, degenerative. I know what it is. Sarah sank back onto the couch, her face losing all its color. My God, Mom, are you sure? The tests were conclusive. How much time? Her doctor's voice took professional control even as her hands shook. Hard to say. Maybe a year, maybe 2. A year. David had returned from shock to something resembling rage. You have known you were dying for 8 months, and you did not tell us. I wanted to. Then why didn't you? To protect you, to spare you from more secrets. How many more, Mom? How many more secrets are you keeping? No more, I said. That is the complete truth. Everything. Sarah had put her head in her hands. When she looked up, her eyes were red but dry. Mom, do you know what Huntington's disease means, being hereditary? Yes. And yet you waited 8 months to tell it. I was afraid. Mom. Sarah stood up, her voice rising for the first time. I have a 50% chance of having the same disease. David, too. And you stole 8 months of time from us to get tested, to plan, to decide what to do with our lives. The accusation in her voice was worse than anything David had said. I know. You have every right to be furious. Furious? Sarah laughed, a bitter, broken sound. Mom, I am beyond furious. I am... She turned and walked toward the door. Where are you going? I asked. I don't know. Out, anywhere. I just need to think. Sarah, please. But she was already gone, the door closing behind her with a final sound. David and I were left in the living room, the space between us filled with 35 years of unspoken truths. Are you going to leave too? I asked quietly. He did not answer for a long moment. Then slowly he walked back to the couch and sat down, picking up one of Arthur's letters. He writes beautifully, he said finally. He always did. My love, he read, every day I spend without you is a day stolen from the universe. If I could go back, I would tell my father to keep his money, his boat, his approval. I would choose you 1,000 times. His voice broke on the last words. David, he really loved me. My real father really wanted to be part of my life. Yes, more than anything. And you kept him away. Yes. There was no way to soften it. I asked him to stay away because I thought it was what was best for you. I thought you needed stability, a normal family, not the complication of meeting your biological father while your legal father was still alive. It was not your decision to make for me. I know. All this time, when I felt like a stranger in my own family, like I didn't quite fit in, I had a father who loved me, and I never had the chance to meet him. "It is not too late," I said softly. He looked at me sharply. "What? Arthur is still here, still at the cafe. And David, he's been watching you from afar all these years. He knows your career, your achievements. I asked him to stay away, but he never stopped caring. You want me to meet him now after 35 years. I want you to have the choice you never had before. The choice to meet your biological father, to decide for yourself what kind of relationship, if any, you want to have with him." David stared at the letter in his hands. "I don't know if I can do that." "You do not have to decide now. But David, there is something else you need to understand about Huntington's." He looked up. "If you have the gene, symptoms usually appear between the ages of 35 and 45. You are 34. I watched him process it, the horror growing in his eyes as the implications settled in. "So I could start showing symptoms at any moment. Yes, or you might not have the gene at all. It is a 50% chance, a coin toss that determines my entire life. There are tests, genetic tests that can tell you for sure. And then what?" His voice was hard. "If I have the gene, what am I supposed to do with that information? Just wait for my brain to start deteriorating. Wait to lose control of my body, my mind. Or you use that information to decide how you want to live the time you have, to make choices based on truth instead of fear. Easy for you to say. No, David, it is not easy at all." I sat next to him. "Every day I wake up knowing that this disease is taking pieces of me away. Every tremor, every moment of confusion, every mood swing I cannot control. It is a reminder that my time is running out. But do you know what is worse than knowing?" He looked at me. "Not knowing. Spending 35 years keeping secrets, living in fear of the truth, wasting time with the people I love because I was too scared to be honest." I took his hand. "Do not make my mistakes, son. If you decide to get tested and it comes back positive, at least you will know. And you can live, truly live, with that knowledge. And if it is negative, you can let go of that fear I see in your eyes right now. And if I do not want to know, if I prefer to live in uncertainty, then that is your choice and I will respect it." I squeezed his hand. "But David, listen to me. No matter what you decide about the test, no matter how you feel about me right now, I need you to know something, that I love you. I have loved you since the moment I knew you were growing inside me. Every decision I made, good or bad, wise or stupid, was made with the intention of protecting you, of giving you the best life possible. I know I made mistakes. I know I hurt you. But my love for you was never, not for a single second, conditional or doubtful." Tears finally came streaming silently down his face. "I love you too, Mom, but I do not know how to process all this." "I know, and you do not have to right now. Just stay. Both of you, you and Sarah, stay a few days. Let's talk more. Get to know Ashley properly, and if you are ready, maybe you will meet Arthur." He nodded slowly, wiping his eyes. "Where is Sarah?" "Probably walking around town. She always liked to walk when she needed to think." "I should go find her." "Give her a little time first. She will come back when she is ready." Sarah did not come back until dusk. By then, David had gone to his old room to rest, and Ashley had gone out with Lily to give me space. I was sitting on the porch, watching the ocean turn orange and pink as the sun set. I heard her footsteps on the stairs before I saw her. When she appeared, her eyes were swollen from crying, but her face was calm. "Hello, Mom." "Hello, my love." I patted the seat next to me. "You walked a lot all over town." She sat down, looking at the sunset. "I went to the cafe." My heart skipped a beat. "The cafe by the harbor." "Yes, I did not go in. I just stood outside watching. I saw an older man, gray hair, kind smile. Is that him, Arthur?" Yes? He looks like David around the eyes. I know. We sat in silence for a moment, listening to the waves crash against the rocks below. I made an appointment for a genetic test, Sarah said suddenly. Tomorrow at the Naval Hospital. So fast. I am a doctor, Mom. I have contacts, and I need to know. She turned to look at me. I cannot live with uncertainty. I need to know if I'm going to end up like you. The words hurt, although I knew she had not said them with cruelty. I understand. Really? Because 8 months ago, when you were diagnosed, you decided it was better not to tell us. How can you understand my need to know when you chose secrecy? Because they are not the same thing, I said softly. I already knew I had the disease. The question was not if I had it, but when to tell you. And yes, I waited too long. But you are in a different position. You can find out before symptoms appear. You can plan your life with that knowledge. And if it is positive, her voice broke. What kind of life can I plan knowing that in 10 or 15 years I will start losing everything I am? A life full of meaning, a life lived intentionally. I turned to face her completely. Sarah, I have watched you over the last few years working yourself to exhaustion, double, triple shifts, never taking vacations, never making time for friends or relationships. Do you know what I think you have been running? Running from loneliness, running from your emotions, running from real life by burying yourself in work. And if the result is positive, you can keep doing that. You can spend the next 10 or 15 years hiding in your work until it is too late. Or you can choose differently. Choose what? To live. To really live. Travel to the places you always wanted to see. Find love, or at least allow yourself to try. Write that book you used to talk about. Spend time with the people who matter. I took her hand. Do not waste the time you have, whether it is 10 years or 60, living halfway. She looked at our intertwined hands. Are you afraid, Mom, of dying? Every day, I admitted, but not as much as I was afraid of not having truly lived. And that is what I was doing before the diagnosis, existing, not living. Keeping secrets, maintaining distance, waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. Is that why you helped Ashley? Because you wanted to do something that mattered? Partially. But also because she reminded me of myself, young, scared, needing help, but too proud to ask for it. I wanted to do for her what I wish someone had done for me. Sarah wiped her eyes. She is good for you. I can see it. The way she looks at you, the way she takes care of this house. She loves you, Mom, like family. And I love her and Lily. I smiled. Do you know what is strange? In 5 months, Ashley has become part of my life in a way that my own children have not been in years. Not because she is better or because you are bad children, but because we started without history, without expectations, without all the damaging patterns we accumulate over time. Do you think we can fix that? The patterns between us? I think we have already started. This conversation, as hard as it is more honesty than we have shared in years. Sarah nodded slowly. David is angry. I know, but he will come around. He always does eventually. He just needs time to process. And will you come around? She looked at me and I saw my little girl in her eyes. The one who used to crawl into my bed after nightmares, the one who asked me to read her one more story before sleep. I never really left, Mom. I just got lost for a while. She leaned over and rested her head on my shoulder. But I want to find my way back if you will let me. I wrapped my arm around her, holding her like I had not done in years. Always my love, always. The next few days were strange, painful but also hopeful in ways I had not anticipated. David decided to stay, taking a week of leave from work. Valerie called several times, her voice growing more shrill with each conversation, but David stood firm. I need to be here, he told her during one particularly tense call that we all could hear. My mother is sick and my family needs me. I am your family? I heard Valerie yell through the phone. Or does that not matter anymore? Of course it matters, but Valerie, my mother, has a terminal illness. I need this time with her. There was a silence then. It is always your mother. It has always been her. When am I going to be the priority, David? It is not fair. It is not fair. You cancel important dinners, you arrive late to events for my work, and now this, taking an entire week off without even consulting me first. I did not sign up to be the second choice in my own marriage. David rubbed his forehead, the stress evident in every line of his face. Valerie, can we talk about this when I get back? No, we talk about this now. Either you come home, or when you come back, there will be no home to come back to. The silence stretched out. I could see David struggling, the weight of the decision pressing on him. Then, with a quiet but firm voice, "Then I guess there will be no home." There was a sharp gasp, then the line went dead. David slowly lowered the phone, staring at it as if it were some strange object. "David," I started, but he held up a hand. "Do not say you are sorry, Mom. Do not. But your marriage... My marriage has been broken for a long time. I just did not want to admit it." He slumped down onto the couch. "Valerie is right about one thing. I was never truly happy with her. There was always this distance, like I was playing the role of the successful husband with the perfect wife, but neither of us was really present." Sarah, who had been listening from the kitchen, walked in with 3 cups of tea. "Sometimes things have to break completely before we can rebuild them correctly," she said, handing each of us a cup. "Is that what we are doing?" David asked. "Breaking ourselves so we can rebuild? Maybe." Sarah sat down. "I have my genetic test appointment tomorrow." David stiffened. "You decided to do it?" "Yes." "And you?" "I do not know yet." He looked at his tea. "Part of me wants to know. But another part, if it is positive, how do I live with that knowledge?" "And how do you live without it?" Sarah answered. "Wondering every time you forget something or your hand shakes if it is the beginning of the disease. Are you not afraid? Terrified?" Her voice trembled. "But Mom is right. I do not want to spend the rest of my life, whether it is long or short, running from fear." At that moment, Ashley walked in with Lily back from a walk. The baby was laughing, clutching a toy bird that Mr. Arthur had given her. "Excuse me," Ashley said, noticing the tension. "I did not mean to interrupt." "You are not interrupting," I said quickly. "In fact, sit down. There is something I want to propose to all of you." Ashley sat down cautiously, Lily on her lap. "These last few days have been intense," I began. "A lot of truths, a lot of pain, but I have also seen something beautiful. I have seen this family start to heal, and it made me realize something." The 3 of them looked at me expectantly. I do not know how much time I have left, months, maybe a year or 2 if I am lucky, but I want to spend that time surrounded by honesty, not secrets, by real love, not obligation. I looked at each of them. "David, Sarah, I love you. I will love you until my last breath. But I do not want you coming back into my life out of guilt. I want you to be here because you choose to be." "Mom," David started, "let me finish. And I also want you to meet someone who has been a part of my life, of our lives, for much longer than you realize." I picked up my phone. "I want you to meet Arthur. Not as the owner of the cafe, but as your father, David. As the man I have loved for 35 years, even though we never allowed ourselves to be together." David paled. "I do not know if I am ready." "You do not have to be ready to have a great relationship immediately. Just meet him. Listen to his story and then decide for yourself what kind of relationship, if any, you want with him. And if I decide I do not want any, then I will respect that. But David, he is your father, and you deserve to have the choice to know him." David looked at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly. "Okay," he said finally, "I will meet him." Arthur arrived that afternoon. I watched him climb the stairs, each step measured and careful. How much we had aged, he and I. We were no longer the young lovers from the photographs, but two middle-aged people carrying decades of regret and unconsummated love. I opened the door before he could knock. "Evelyn," he said softly, his eyes searching mine. "Are you sure about this?" "I have never been more sure of anything." I guided him inside where David and Sarah were waiting in the living room. Ashley had discreetly retreated to her room, giving us privacy. Arthur stopped in the doorway, his eyes immediately finding David. I saw the recognition there. The same dark hair, the same strong jaw, the same eyes that narrowed when he was nervous. "David," Arthur said, his voice thick with emotion, "you have grown into a handsome man." David stood up stiff and uncomfortable. "Mr. Arthur. Please, just Arthur." Or, he paused, unsure, "or whatever you feel comfortable calling me." They stared at each other for a long moment, two men who shared blood but no history. "Mom says you are my biological father," David said finally. "Yes, I am." "And you never wanted to meet me in 34 years. The pain on Arthur's face was palpable. "I wanted to meet you every single day of those 34 years. But your mother, she thought it was best if I stayed away, and I respected her decision because I loved her and I trusted her judgment. That was not just her decision to make. No, you are right, and I am sorry. I should have fought harder. I should have insisted on being a part of your life." Arthur took a step forward. "But David, even though I could not be in your life the way I wanted to, you never stopped being important to me. I asked your mother about you, constantly. I knew about every award, every achievement. I went to your high school graduation. I sat in the back so you would not see me. And when you opened your own architecture firm, I was one of your first clients, although I did it through a middleman, so you would not know it was me." David looked shocked. "The restaurant project by the harbor. That was you." "Yes, I hired another man to pretend to be the client, but the design was for a building I wanted to construct. Your work was beautiful, by the way, exactly the vision I had." I did not know." "You were not supposed to know. I needed to be part of your life somehow, even if it was in secret." Sarah, who had been silent, finally spoke. "And what about me? Did you watch me from afar, too?" Arthur looked at her tenderly. "Of course. You may not be my biological daughter, Sarah, but you are David's sister. You are a part of him, which means you are important to me, too. And Evelyn speaks of you with such pride. Your career in medical school, your dedication to helping others. You are extraordinary." Sarah blinked in surprise, clearly not expecting such warmth. "Sit down, Arthur," I said, pointing to the couch. Tell them our story from your perspective." And he did. Over the next hour, Arthur spoke of our young love, of his father's ultimatum, of his forced marriage to a woman he did not love. He spoke of his wife, a good woman who died without him ever giving her the love she deserved, because his heart had always belonged to someone else. "When I came back and found your mother married to Robert with 2 children, I thought I had lost my chance forever," he said. "But Robert, he was a better man than I would have been in his position. He allowed us to be friends. He never questioned it when Evelyn and I had coffee together or when I showed up at the occasional family event." "Dad knew?" David asked. "He knew you still loved Mom?" "Yes, and I think he knew she still had feelings for me too. But your mother is a woman of honor. She made a vow to Robert and she kept it. Even after he died, she could not. I finished it for him. She could not let go of the guilt. I could not allow myself to be happy with you when I felt like I had ruined so many lives. Yours, Robert's, even your wife's." "You did not ruin anything," Arthur said firmly. "You did the best you could in an impossible situation. We all did." David had been listening with growing emotion on his face. Now he stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the ocean. "My whole life I thought there was something wrong with me," he said quietly. "I thought the reason, Dad, Robert, treated me differently was because I was not good enough, because I was failing somehow. No. Arthur stood up and walked over to David. There was nothing wrong with you. Robert loved you the best he could, but yes, there was probably a distance there that never fully closed. And that is not your fault, David. It is our fault. Mine, your mother's, Robert's. We carried the weight of our decisions, and you suffered for it. David turned around, tears in his eyes. Did you ever really want to know me, and every single day? Arthur tentatively reached out his hand. And if you will let me now, I would like to try to get to know you, not as a replacement for Robert. He was your father in every way that matters, but as the man who gave you life, as someone who has loved you since before you were born. For a long moment, David just stared at Arthur's outstretched hand. Then slowly he took it. It was not a hug. He was not Dad yet, but it was a beginning. Sarah's genetic test was on a Tuesday. David decided to take his on the same day. If we are going to jump into the abyss, let's jump together, he said. The results would take 10 days to process. 10 days of waiting, of uncertainty, of trying not to think about the future while we lived in the present. During those days, something remarkable happened. Our broken family began to heal. David and Arthur started meeting at the cafe every morning. They did not talk about anything deep, just coffee conversation, getting to know each other slowly. But I saw how David started to relax around Arthur, how he started to see the similarities between them. Not just physical, but in the way they thought, the way they saw the world. Sarah spent time with Ashley, helping her navigate the readmission application process for medical school. I found out that Sarah had made calls to her contacts at the state university, to scholarship funds, even to her own bank to set up an assistance fund. I cannot give her back everything she lost, Sarah told Ashley, but I can help her start over. And I spent that time just being a mother without the burden of secrets, being a friend to Ashley, without the loneliness I had carried for years, and even cautiously starting to explore what it meant to love Arthur without guilt. One night, after everyone had gone to bed, Arthur and I sat on the porch looking at the stars. 35 years, he said softly. We wasted 35 years. They were not wasted, I replied. They were complicated, but they brought us here to this moment. And now, Evelyn, if you could go back, would you change anything? I thought about it. I really thought about it. I do not know. If I change one thing, I change everything. David might not exist, or Sarah, and they are my greatest achievement, even with all the mistakes I made. They are not an achievement, Arthur said. They are people. Complicated, beautiful, flawed people that you raised while dealing with impossible circumstances. Do you think we can have this? I gestured between us. What we could never have before. Just be us, without secrets, without guilt. I do not know, but I would like to try. However much or however little time you have left, Evelyn, I would like to spend it with you if you will let me. I took his wrinkled hand, now spotted with age but still strong. I would like that too. The day the results arrived, we were all gathered in the living room. Sarah had picked up both envelopes from the hospital that morning. She held hers in one hand, David's in the other. Who goes first? She asked, trying to sound brave but clearly terrified. Together, David said. We opened them together. They looked at each other, an understanding passing between them, siblings united in this moment of truth. Okay, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. They tore the envelopes open simultaneously. There was a moment of silence as they read, and then Sarah let out a sob, the paper falling from her hands. My heart sank. Sarah, positive. The word came out like a moan. I am positive. I stood up to go to her, but David stopped me. Wait. His voice was strange. Look at my result. He handed her the paper, and I read the words that would change everything. Negative result. No HTT gene mutation detected. David did not have the gene. He would be fine, but Sarah would not. No, Sarah said, shaking her head violently. No, 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 this is not fair. Why me? Why not him? David knelt in front of her, taking her hands. Sarah, do not tell me it is going to be okay. It is not going to be okay. Tears streamed down her face. I am going to end up like Mom. I am going to lose my mind, my control, everything that I am. You are not alone. David interrupted her firmly. Listen to me. You are not alone in this. But you are fine. You can have a normal life, kids, a future. And I will use it, taking care of you. I will be right here, Sarah, every step of the way. Ashley, who had been standing silently in the corner, walked over and sat on the other side of Sarah. Me too, she said. Not just for your mother, but for you. You are my family now too. Sarah looked at all of us. David, Ashley, Arthur, me. And something in her broke and reformed at the same time. 10 years, she whispered. Maybe 15 before the symptoms start. Then we have 10 or 15 years to live, I said, sitting next to her. Not to wait to die, but to really live. You and me, Sarah. We are going to show everyone how it is done. She laughed through her tears, a broken but beautiful sound. How can you be so strong? Because I have no other choice, and neither do you. But Sarah, listen to me. This changes everything. Your career, your life in Chicago, all of it. You have to decide now how you want to spend the next few years. I do not know. I do not know what to do. Then give yourself time to figure it out. But while you do, stay here, with us, with your family. A week later, I called my lawyer to the house. It was time to put my life in order, not just for me, but for all of us. David, Sarah, Ashley, and Arthur were all present when Mr. Vance arrived. Mrs. Miller, he said, opening his briefcase, I understand you want to make changes to your will. Yes, significant changes. I looked at my children, at Ashley, at Arthur, my entire biological and chosen family. First, the house. I want to divide it into equal parts among David, Sarah, and Ashley. David stood up. Mom, no. You cannot give a third of the house to someone you barely know. Someone who has taken care of this house and of me better than anyone else in the last 6 months. I interrupted. Ashley is family, David. Just as much family as you or Sarah. But, no buts. This is my house, my decision. Sarah put a hand on David's arm. Let her speak. I nodded gratefully to Sarah. The house will be divided into 3 parts. David, you can buy the other parts or sell it. That decision is between the 3 of you, but Ashley will have an equal say in what happens. Miss Evelyn. Ashley started, tears welling up. I cannot accept. You can and you will. You gave me a gift. You gave me back my house, my life. Now I am giving you one in return. I turned back to Mr. Vance. Second, my savings account. It is divided into 3 parts as well. 1 part for Lily's college education when she comes of age, 1 part for a fund for Huntington's research at the Naval Hospital in Seattle, and the 3rd part divided between David and Sarah. Mom, that is too little for us, David started. It is not too little. It is exactly right. You both have careers and incomes. Ashley and Lily do not, and the research, if my illness can help someone else in the future, then it was not in vain. And the restaurant, asked Mr. Vance, the little one you own by the harbor, that goes to Arthur. I looked at the man I had loved for my entire adult life, for him to manage as he sees fit. It is small, it is not worth much, but it is yours. Arthur had tears in his eyes. Evelyn, you should have had this years ago. Consider it compensation for 35 years of unrequited love. It was never unrequited, he said quietly. I know, but now it is official. Mr. Vance was taking notes furiously. Anything else? Yes, my personal effects, jewelry, photographs, books. David and Sarah can choose what they want. The rest goes to Ashley. except for one thing. I went to my room and returned with a small velvet box. I opened it to reveal a simple but beautiful ring with a small emerald. This was from my grandmother. She always told me to give it to the person who truly understood what love means. I looked at Ashley. For your wedding someday, or to give to Lily when she is older. But it is yours now. Ashley took the ring with trembling hands. I do not know what to say. Say that you accept it, that you accept all of us as your family. I accept you, all of you, always. David had remained silent through all of this. Now he finally spoke. Mom, this is a lot. It is, but it is the right thing to do. I turned to him. David, I know this is hard. I know that seeing Ashley receive so much makes you question your place, but understand this. I am not putting her above you. I am putting her right beside you. She is your sister now, just as much as Sarah is. She is not my sister. She could be if you let her. I walked over to him, taking his face in my hands. My son, for 34 years, you have felt like you did not quite fit in, that something was wrong. But nothing was ever wrong with you. The problem was that we kept you away from people who would have loved you unconditionally. Arthur, and now Ashley. Let them in, David. Let this broken family become something new and beautiful. He pulled away, walking toward the window. For a long moment, I thought he would leave, that this was too much too fast. Then he turned around and his eyes found Ashley. What made you stay? He asked. When Mom gave you the keys, you could have stayed a few days and then left. You could have taken what you needed and disappeared. Why did you stay and take care of everything? Ashley held Lily closer. Because no one had ever shown me kindness like that before, because your mother saw me. She really saw me. When I was invisible to everyone else. And because... She paused, choosing her words carefully, because I wanted to show her that her generosity was not a mistake, that I was worth the risk she took. And now, why do you stay now? Because I love you all. Your mother who saved me. Your sister who is helping me get back into medical school. Even you, even if you hate me. Because I know you are only protecting your mother. I do not hate you, David said quietly. I just do not understand how life can change so fast. A week ago, my marriage was intact. I thought I knew who my family was. I thought I had time. Now all of that is gone. It is not gone, Sarah said. It just transformed into something different, something honest. David looked around the room. At me, at Sarah, at Ashley, at Arthur, at Mr. Vance still waiting with his pen. Okay, he said finally. I accept the terms of the will. Ashley gets her third of the house. He walked over to Ashley and extended his hand. Welcome to the family, I guess. Ashley took his hand, smiling through her tears. Thank you. I'm sitting in my wheelchair on the porch, watching the ocean. My body no longer obeys me like it used to. The tremors are constant now, and words sometimes get stuck in my throat like stones. But my mind is still clear, at least for now, and that is enough. David is inside with Arthur cooking lunch. It is Sunday, and on Sundays, everyone gathers here. Our new tradition. I can hear them laughing about something, David's deep voice blending with Arthur's. He still does not call him Dad, maybe he never will, but he calls him Arthur with warmth now, and that is enough. Sarah left Chicago 3 months ago. She quit her job at the hospital, sold her sterile apartment, and came home. Not to take care of me, although that is part of it, but to live. 10 years, Mom, she told me when she made the decision. I have at least 10 good years. I am not going to waste them hiding at work. Now she works part-time at the Naval Hospital, supervising the new Huntington's research program, the one I funded with part of my savings. The rest of the time she writes. She is working on a book about medicine family and what it means to fully live when you know your time is limited. She is good, her editor told me last week. Really good. This one could be important. Ashley moved into her own apartment 2 months ago, a small place near the university where she started her 4th year of medical school this semester. Sarah got her a paid research position, and between that and her part-time job at Arthur's Cafe, she is managing. But she comes over every day. Her and Lily, who is now 15 months old and is saying her first words, including Evelyn for me. It breaks my heart in the best way. David finally divorced Valerie. It was ugly. She fought for everything, tried to take his firm, his reputation, but he walked away with what mattered, his freedom. I have no regrets, he told me after it was all over. I should have had the courage to leave years ago, but I was afraid of being alone. And now I know I was never alone. I was just disconnected. He moved back to Seattle, opening a satellite firm here. Most mornings you can find him at Arthur's Cafe drinking coffee and working on designs. They are designing something together now, an expansion of the cafe that will include a small gallery space for local artists. It is what I always wanted to do, Arthur told me. Create a space for the community, and David has the vision to make it beautiful. As for Arthur and me, we finally allowed ourselves this. 35 years late, but here we are. He comes over every evening, sits with me on this porch, reads me poetry by Whitman and Frost. He tells me about his day, about David, about the plans for the cafe. And sometimes, when the sun sets over the Pacific and everyone else is inside, he kisses me. Soft, gentle, full of all the love we kept away for decades. Do you regret it? I ask him sometimes, about all the time we lost. Every day, he admits. But I'm also grateful for this time we have now. Honest, open, real. The door opens behind me and Sarah walks out with a blanket. It is cold, Mom, let me. I raise my trembling hand, stopping her. With great effort, I push the words out. No, cold, happy. She smiles that smile she used to reserve for her patients, but which she now gives me freely. I know, Mom. Me too. She sits next to me, and in a moment, David joins us, then Arthur, then Ashley with Lily. We huddle together on this porch, this impossible, broken, beautiful family, and I realize this is what I was looking for my whole life. Not perfection, not secrets kept to avoid pain, but this, messy, honest truth and love in all its complicated forms. Lily reaches for my trembling hands, holding them with her tiny fingers. Evelyn, she says clearly, and everyone laughs. Yes, my love, I whisper. Evelyn is here, always. Later, when everyone has gone to bed except Arthur, I take out the notebook where I have been writing when my hand still allows it. On the last page, I write with shaky letters. To whoever finds this someday, I have lived 58 years. I have loved deeply. I have made terrible mistakes. I have kept secrets that almost destroyed everything I cared about. But in the end, I learned this. Family is not just blood. Family is choice. It is honesty. It is being present even when it is hard, especially when it is hard. If you are reading this and someone has made you feel invisible, like you did not matter, like your life was less than complete, know this. It is not too late. It is never too late to choose honesty over secrets, love over fear, life over mere existence. I have Huntington's disease. I am dying. But in these last few months, I have been more alive than I was in decades. Do not waste your time waiting for the perfect moment. This is the perfect moment. Now. Always now. With love and hope, Evelyn Miller. I close the notebook and look at the ocean one last time tonight. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. My body will continue to betray me. There will be pain, frustration, loss. But there will also be this: family, love, truth. And that I discovered is enough. More than enough. It is everything.